ARE Podcast, episode number 55.
Welcome to the ARE Podcast. Where it's all about encouraging and inspiring you today so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a licensed architect tomorrow. And now your host, David Doucette.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ARE Podcast, episode number 55. And as always, joined by our co-host, Eric Corey Freed. Eric, how are you?
55. Wow, it feels like at least 80 of these we've done, but 55, it's a good number.
Wait, are we talking about your birthday or the podcast episode?
I don't know. I'm so old I don't even remember anymore.
Well, speaking of old, segueing into our micro podcast that we have today, which, by the way, our micro podcasts seem to come in at just under 15 minutes, somewhere around 12, 13 minutes. So the original 10 minutes didn't seem to quite be enough. So we are promising to deliver these in under 15 minutes. And today we have a story. What kind of story is this? It's obviously not a proverb. What would you consider it?
It might be a proverb.
Okay.
It's an old story that I was told growing up, and I've heard mentioned in TV shows and movies and here and there around. But I recently was reminded of it, and it reminded me of the challenge that the candidates go through.
Yeah, it is so applicable to what you guys struggle with, and it is so spot on to what you guys struggle with, because we see it all the time. Eric sees it in the web chats. I see it in email. We see it in our coaching program all the time. This kind of never goes away, this struggle. So I'm gonna read it, and then we will talk about it. Okay. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed."
Yeah, the one you feed. It's each of us have these kind of dueling conflicts within each of us, and I see this in the candidates, right? On the one hand, they want to be hopeful and optimistic and excited about the process, and they want to pass their exam and start their professional career. And the other one is full of fear and anger towards the process and towards NCARB. And which one wins? The one you feed.
Yeah, the one you pay attention to, the one that you let control your thoughts. And what's interesting, and as I was reading, one is evil, and I'm going to read the words again. Every single word that I read about the evil side, we've seen in candidates, and can be part of the internal struggle that candidates have about this exam. Every single one of them can apply. So let me just read them again. We have anger, right? We're upset that we failed the exam. We're upset at NCARB that they're making us do this. Envy. We're jealous of our peers who are licensed. We're jealous of the people who we think aren't that smart in our firm who are licensed. Sorrow, pity, right? We feel bad for ourselves. Regret that I waited so long. Regret that I keep going in and out of this process. Regret that I just can't get it together. Greed, Arrogance, we see that a lot, and arrogance is actually something that if you don't get a handle on that, that will continue to plague you through the exam process. Self-pity, right? Like sorrow. Self-pity, I feel sorry for myself. And Eric, I know you hear this a lot. Well, actually, tell me what you hear in regards to this self-pity.
First of all, virtually every call, 8 out of 10 is, well, I'm a terrible test taker and have been my whole life. Right. And then a lot of them, maybe half the calls I get are, my cat was sick the morning of, I got a lot of deadlines at work. The testing center smells like soup. Like it's always something else. And all of that was really in response to, well, why do you think you failed? And it's always an excuse. And really, they're looking for somebody to blame. And really, at the end of the day, it's just you and that old IBM computer that they give you at the testing center. That's all there is. So it's only you, man. It's just you to blame.
I like the guilt one, which is next on the list. I know you've heard of that. Guilty that I didn't make my parents proud, or even more specifically, guilty that I'm not licensed yet because I'm supposed to be taking over my dad's firm. I know you've heard that from a few candidates. Yeah,
we've had a few of those in the one-on-one coaching. Surprisingly, their father's an architect, never their mother yet. I'm sure it'll happen, but their father's an architect. They want to retire and they want to pass the mantle on to their child. And that puts immense pressure on them to pass. And one of the things that we discovered very early on is that it really can start to build that little, rage bubble, of the wolf inside them, the evil wolf inside them, because they look at other people who are passing and seemingly passing easily, right, with no effort, and the pressure on them is so immense, it's hard for them to enjoy the process. So one of the bits of advice I go through with them is, first of all, let's have you enjoy this more. Let's have you look forward to this more. Let's show you how this is going to make you a better architect and get you excited about it. Because if you're going in with that kind of anger, envy, sorrow, regret mindset, it's just going to cloud your judgment. There's probably a Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader metaphor here too, but really, we see it every day. It is. It's simply, boiled down to, which is what this tells us. It's a battle between good and evil, right? And which one are you going to pay attention to? And continuing on these evil words, resentment, right? We have that. We resent everybody in NCARB, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. And then let's talk about the good wolf, because I think all of us can probably relate to that evil wolf. Even if that's not the one we feed, and hopefully we don't feed that one, but we still hear that, right? We still have to sort of battle that in our own minds and make sure we don't, feed it, because a lot of those emotions are normal, right? It's normal to sort of be angry maybe after we fail an exam, although we don't want you to be angry. But you got to keep those in check. We're not saying don't be angry, but work on being less angry, I guess. One of the things we cover in the coaching that comes up all the time is where you or I will say to them, well, what can we learn from this, right? Let's turn this into a learning opportunity. Anger, okay, the drive home from the testing center, you can be angry, right? or that night, I guess you can be angry, but really you only can be angry at yourself. So it's not going to, feeding that wolf isn't really going to do you much good. Let's look at it as an opportunity. You got to see all the questions on the exam. That's a good thing. It was an expensive $235 lesson, I guess, but you learned something from it. Let's get value out of that $235 lesson, and you'll get them next time. For sure. And it's one step closer to getting licensed. Right. Every attempt is one step closer. And what I've been hearing from candidates in our coaching program too lately is that they're managing their anxiety. Not only are they managing it, they're a little more detached from the process. So when they're done, they're kind of just done, pass or fail. They're like, oh, okay.
And that's kind of where we want to get. It's a bit of a Zen state, during this process, because in the end, the pass or fail doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously we need to get 6 passes, but in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter if it's the next one that's coming, because I'm just going to keep going until, I get my license. So, and then in terms of the good wolf, right? Joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. First off, I want to be around that person or that wolf. Second off, I want that person in my head. I want that wolf in my head. Because if I have that, I'll get through this process. Sure, I might fail 10 times, but so what, right? And NCARB, it's a 60-day retake period. You could take, we're finding most candidates can handle taking 10 exams in a year, fitting in the retakes, because you don't need another 6 weeks to study. So all of it.
By the way, you also don't need to sit around for 60 days waiting to take your test again. In that 60 days, you could study for a test easily. And in truth, if you fail PA, going off and taking PPD and studying for PPD will only help you with your PA retake. So this is something we advocate for in the coaching. If you sit around for 60 days, you're going to end up fixating on the bad wolf, right? You're going to be, why did I fail? And all those questions. And instead, let's channel that into some good energy.
And to your point, and that's what we teach candidates in our coaching program is schedule your next 6 months worth of exams, right? So we have candidates now scheduled out to January. So they know they're taking one next week, for example. Well, the following week they're starting in their next division, regardless of what they, pass or fail. And that's very empowering. And as you have found, Eric, candidates can typically get stuck in a rut where they just get, I can't move on to PJM until I pass PCM. So then they sit there for 60 days and don't do anything. And then they try PCM again and fail again, and they just get stuck in the rut. I mean, it's the opposite of what we want.
Yeah, and also not a very pleasant experience for them either. They're not really thinking ahead. And the advantage of having coached tens of thousands of people at this point is that we see these kind of self-destructive patterns over and over again. And so let's think about it. You fail PCM. That's a shame. You get over it. You're going to learn lessons from it. But now you're going to go back. Are you just going to restudy your old material? And how is that going to change anything? Remember the famous definition of insanity from Socrates, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The same thing's true with studying. If you failed, you got to figure out why you failed. You got to focus on what that's doing. Going back and studying for another 60 days isn't going to help you. But going into another division, making connections between the information and building out your mindset would help you way more than simply just going back over the same old pages that you did before.
A quick self-check for you guys is on your next exam, if you fail, which is part of the process, it's normal, just check yourself on how you feel afterwards. If you're upset and angry, you need to check. If you're kind of like, oh, good, I'm one step closer, I didn't pass, but I got a good sense of what PCM is now. I know what to do next time, and I'm going to start studying for PJM on Monday. That's the good wolf, right? Or do you want to be the angry wolf and self-pitying, all of that stuff that goes there. All right, with that said, I think we're just about at our time, so we're going to wrap this one up. And just remember these final words. It's the one you feed. Right? And which one will you feed? It's your choice. On behalf of Eric, my name is David Doucette, and we will see you guys on the next ARE podcast.
Thanks for listening to the ARE podcast. Be sure to visit architectexamprep.com and check out our other podcast episodes, video tips, and the ARE blog. Remember to plan, practice, and pass.